safety for cows and consumers. The very first insight is that animal and food safety are non-negotiable. It's a deal breaker for all participants across the entire value chain. But it's really important to understand that in order to reach this element of animal and food safety, this requires evidence that the concentrations of potential residues in milk and meat resulting from feeding the additive are within the levels determined to be safe. Why do I point out on this? Because we're talking about concentration of compounds, right, being safe. And this brings us directly to insight number 2, which is that the safety element is based on composition and conditions of use. And why is this important? Because every feed additive is going to have a composition, but it must also have a conditions of use that is explained in detail. We are not only interested in the amounts of feed additive that are going to be administered, but we're also interested in the form in which they will be administered. How are they going to be fed? Is there going to be a period of acclimation, or is there going to be fed for certain periods of time? I mean, all of those elements are elements that play onto the conditions of use. So safety is difficult because safety is confusing. It's confusing to the public, but it's also confusing even within the value chain. There is a requirement for FDA to approve feed additives, but there's also a GRAS exception. And so these designations of safety, either an FDA or a GRAS designation, are complicated because they're either a time-consuming process or there's a misconception that compounds found in nature are safe and require no evaluation. And that is simply not true, because every compound, which is the composition part of safety, needs to also come along with a conditions of use component. And so even natural compounds found in nature need to be evaluated for safety. The third insight in safety is pretty straightforward. The safety needs to also be maintained throughout the entire value chain. And there's people that are going to be handling these materials. They're going to likely be handling in different forms as the final form. And therefore, there needs to be a safety element throughout that process of handling as well. So having said all of that, I want to point out that the summary is that safety is the foundation for confidence, that we start from a place of confusion, but there is a risk of losing reputation that is non-negotiable. It's a deal breaker. And therefore, in order to maintain that confidence, safety needs to be number 1.